Hey, Rob from Morning 42 here, and today we're going to dig into some really cool details about The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 7, which is Chapter 15, called The Believer. Now, if you haven't seen The Believer, then I suggest you click off of this because we're going to go heavy into some details that you probably don't want spoiled if you haven't seen it. For the rest of us, let's get going. Now, I do want to mention that this isn't going to be like a scene for scene breakdown. This is more about some of the cool elements that they added in, some of the I don't know, some of the lore stuff, which I really get into. So yeah, let's get started. So one of the cool things about the start of the episode is our heroes arrive on this planet, which is called the Carthon Chop Fields, and it's a salvage yard prison where Miggs Mayfeld is being held. And it's really kind of cool because it's very reminiscent of the planet Braca from Jedi Fallen Order, where the game starts off. So it's this big salvage yard, and I mean you got this cool, almost looks like it's like the Imperial claw machine. No, it's this is a New Republic prison, right, where people are being held. But the detail here is really neat, and I just thought it was a cool way to start the episode with something we've never really seen before in live action. Now, one of the coolest pieces that I think it just made me really giddy with geek happiness was this sequence at the beginning of the episode where you've got Fennec Shand, Cara Dune, Mando, and Miggs Mayfeld sitting in the cargo hold of Slave One, and as the ship takes off, the wings sort of do this as the ship flies around. Well, what's really neat is that stays stationary as the ship revolves around them or rotates around them. It's very, very cool. Something I never really even thought about. And it's really kind of cool to see that in live action for them to actually explain how that works. Now, when our heroes take control of the Juggernaut, they have to change into the suits that we recognize, maybe most of us, probably from Rogue One. It's the first time we've seen these in anything else, so it's actually kind of cool to see. Now, I want to say that this whole area or this whole segment of the show was really kind of neat because at first it was like, is Bill Burr just being Bill Burr in space? Because sometimes some of their dialogue was like that, but we got this really cool detail of the planet, which is very sort of reminiscent of Vietnam, where you've got a planet controlled by the Empire, but from the people's point of view, Empire, New Republic, they're kind of the same. It's kind of a neat way of sort of bringing this. I mean, let's be honest. It's not the lightest of material to bring to a Star Wars show, but it was actually really kind of neat to delve into that. I've mentioned many times in the past that that Bucho and I, my friend Bucho, we did a podcast together called Send in the Clones, which was sort of an episode by episode breakdown of all of the episodes of the Clone Wars. Now, one of the things that we used to do at the end of the episode was sort of basically tell each other what our favorite shots of the episode was. And for me, if we were doing that show, this would be the sequence of shots that I thought were the absolute, the shots of the episode. It was so cool to see this whole sequence. The Juggernaut is being, attacked by these pirates, and these TIE fighters coming in for a almost like a strafe run, and then this shot is the end of the shot that I'm really was really excited to see. Sort of a canyon, and as they're running up from the left side of screen, TIE fighters kind of come up over that ridge, and it's just an awesome shot. And then of course this whole sequence too is really neat. And then when they get there, they're all being saluted, and it's a weird thing where you almost feel like this sense of oh yeah, they did it, but it's maybe it's not all they seem. It's like, are these pirates actually pirates, or are these just people that are on the planet trying to get rid of the Empire? Because they're trying to blow up the Rhydonium, not keep it. So it is an interesting kind of thing here. So in order to find Gideon's cruiser, they have to infiltrate this terminal, right? And the terminal requires a facial scan, and Mayfeld is ready to go in there, but he sees a former officer there. So we see Din Djarin decide to take off his helmet, and it's an interesting this whole sequence is really sort of interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, we see him going against his ideals because he believes in the importance of what he's doing here, which it's actually kind of strange if you think about it. The terminal requires a human face. Is that really all that's required? Because it's not like his face, has any sort of, I don't know, importance in the Empire. So it's not like it's recognizing someone's face for entry. It's just like, oh, as long as it's a human face, we're good. It's kind of strange. But, of course, the officer does find them and starts questioning them. And Mayfeld does a great job of sort of disarming him and kind of in a sort of humorous sequence. But what I really love is this standoff or sit off. I don't know. It's at the table here. This is one of the most, I mean, seriously, one of the most tense sequences that I think is in the entire series. And this actor is Richard Brake. Now, if he seems familiar, he played a couple of pretty high-profile roles. Number one, the thing that I really recognized him from, when I finally realized it, was he played Joe Chill in Batman Begins in 2005, which, can you believe that it's been 15 years since that movie came out? But also, he played the Night King. Now, I have to say, I am a fan of Bill Burr. I've been a fan of Bill Burr for a long time. His comedy is fantastic. But when I heard that he was going to be in The Mandalorian, I wasn't really expecting much. I was more just happy for him. Good for him. Good for his career. But I don't know. I just didn't expect very much from him. But this episode showed off that there's a lot more to Bill Burr than even I expected. And he was sort of the highlight of the episode for me. It's that tension was, I mean, you could cut it with a knife, and it was fun to see. It was fun to watch. And one of the other things that I didn't actually mention before was that it's a little tidbit into Pedro Pascal and the way that he's playing this character. He doesn't look around with his eyes. He actually turns his whole head as if he's still wearing the helmet. He's been wearing the helmet so long. That's how he looks at things. He just actually turns his head. When Mayfeld gives his helmet back to him and basically is saying, I didn't see anything, he actually looks down at the helmet. And it's a neat little, I don't know. I just think that's a really, really cool thing that Pedro did for the character. One of the things I really appreciate about The Mandalorian is how they've been really drawing from all sources, not just movies. But in this case, Operation Cinder was first introduced in Shattered Empire, which was a comic series that came out prior to The Force Awakens. But this also was in Battlefront 2, and that's where I remembered it from. And Operation Cinder was sort of like a last-ditch effort of the Emperor. So in the case of the Emperor dying, Operation Cinder would go into effect, which would basically, destroy worlds all over the galaxy. And so it was interesting to see this referenced again. It's really, really cool that they keep doing those things. The way that everything works together. And again, we've talked about how much I dislike it when they just seem to ignore things. Rise of Skywalker. Now, toward the end of the episode, as our heroes are, basically exiting this mine, Slave One picks him up, and before they go, though, Mayfeld takes a shot with a cycler rifle, which, again, that's another video game reference. It's one of those guns that I really enjoyed using back in the original Battlefront game in 2015. So that was really cool to see that Rhydonium explode. And of course, what a beautiful shot of Slave One here. But then, the TIE fighters are coming after him, and Boba Fett says, "Hold on," and releases the seismic charge. on the TIE fighters. And we know this from episode 2, Attack of the Clones. And it was just cool to see, and it's one of my favorite sound effects in all of Star Wars, that pang, you know what I mean? It's just so cool. Now, of course, at the end of the episode, we basically get the Mandalorian referencing season 1, when he basically tells Moff Gideon that you have something, not something, but someone that belongs to me. It's weird how they basically turned it from, Grogu is not just a thing. Grogu is a person. Grogu is someone that he values, and not only values, but values him as a son, or as a father to a son. Is a really, really neat little segment that I really enjoyed, and it's probably the most menacing we've ever heard him. And Moff Gideon didn't look too happy about it. In fact, he looked rather scared, in my opinion. Now, as I said, I really, really enjoyed this episode. I mean, there's so much cool little additions to see, additions to lore, additions to character, to motivation. It's one of those things that makes the story richer. It's not just the cool, the cool action scenes and the explosions and things like that. It's the attention to detail. It's the idea that these characters have lives beyond what we've seen on screen. They're not just playing this little part. They had a life before we even met them. It's one of my biggest problems with a lot of what happens in Rogue One. It really doesn't, some of the when they allude to other things, sometimes it's literally, let's just stop for a second and go, hey, remember this? And that's one of the things that I don't like about when they use nostalgia for that effect. One of the other things about this episode that I didn't even realize until today was that this is the first episode ever that Grogu isn't in it. I mean, it's about Mando's search for Grogu, but that's it. He's not even in it. He doesn't actually make an appearance, so that's actually kind of interesting. But yeah, this episode was great. In fact, it's one of my favorites because it's the first time, I think, ever where we just kind of stop and we have to have a conversation. And it happens twice. It's really cool. I just really enjoyed it. And of course, the tension at that table scene was just fantastic. So yeah, I think Bill Burr has got to be the highlight of this episode for me. His character had, it's so weird to think one thing about a character and then by the end of the episode you feel differently. And I think that's good TV, good writing can do that. It's one of the things I always loved about Lost. Sometimes the episode would start and I'm like, oh man, are you serious? And then by the end of the episode, I'm so on board and I want to see more. So yeah, for me, if I had to give a rating to this, I would have to give it 3 3/4 stars out of 4. It's one of my favorites. I've said that a couple of times this season. It's like, man, this has got to be one of my favorite episodes, if not my favorite. This one ranks way up there. I mean, there's character motivations, which is really important to me. There's a lot of lore and a lot of building to something that I just really enjoyed. I mean, to me, it's one of the highlights of this season. So yeah, I guess that about wraps up The Believer. What did you think? Did you think that Bill Burr was a good person to bring back? Did you enjoy his character development over the show? Leave your comments down below. We'll discuss it. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. It really does help out the channel. And if you're new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button for more. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.